You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Our first of the new year, so happy 2024 to you all. It's hard to believe for me that it's almost exactly 10 years since I set out on the AT. I'm still talking about it. This is Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. And I'm Steve Adams, Almighty Blue, who had that midlife crisis 10 years ago and is still having it, even though it should probably be called an old life crisis by now. As I explained to you last week, from now until I return from the UK sometime in June this year, I'm putting off reading my next book on the show. That's going to be Emily Leonard's book, Happy Hiking, but as I wouldn't have been able to read it in full prior to setting off, I've decided to drop that part of the show for now. The other big change is that we won't be having a Mighty Blue class of 2024. I absolutely love that part of the show, but it just isn't going to work with me hiking for a couple of months and podcasting from the British Trail. On the other hand, I still want the show to be part of the 2024 AT hiking season, so I'm going to be catching up with a bunch of hikers who are still out there when I return. If you want to be one of those, just reach out to me at steve@hikingradionetwork.com and we'll stay in touch, and I'll contact you on my return so we can start recording. So the show will continue to have a main interview, then another section that will vary over the coming months. For the next few weeks, I'm going to be reflecting on the hikes of the Mighty Blue class of 2023, when we had 4 successful through hikes, and I'll be catching up with their reflections. After that, it's pretty much a see how it goes period. I want to introduce short hikes to you all. I already have a few of those recorded, but I'd like to hear from you if you've got a particular favourite that you'd like to share with us. That email is still steve@hikingradionetwork.com, so I'm hoping that some of you will want to come on and share your local hike. Of course, when I'm in the UK, as I mentioned before, I'll be podcasting from the Southwest Coast Path on the usual Thursday morning, as well as every Monday morning, to let you follow my progress. Sorry about the long intro, but I wanted to recap how we plan to proceed for the first half of the year. So let's get on and meet this week's main guest, Jason Tompkins, who's actually been a guest before, about a year ago on episode 353. And then he told us about a trail he'd done and named the Carolinian. At that time, he mentioned that he has something more substantial in mind, and today he's on to share his latest epic hike. Here's Jason. We've got a returning guest on the show today. This is Jason Tompkins, all out and about. Hey, Jason, good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm good. When we last had you on the show, you were introducing us to a trail that you'd named the Carolinian. But you had bigger plans at the time, and now you've followed through on those plans. Tell us where you've been hiking recently.
This year, I hiked the Eastern Continental Trail from Key West, Florida, up through the northern tip of Newfoundland. So, yeah, That's a wild trip.
So the Eastern... It's funny, actually, because earlier on I put down some notes, ECT, and I put East Coast Trail, but it's not the East Coast Trail. The East Coast Trail is part of Newfoundland, part of a trail in Newfoundland, but it's not the Eastern Continental Trail, which is what this is. Right. You described it more of a route or a route, as the Americans say, than a trail. Tell us about that. What is the difference as far as you see?
I mean, it's not really necessarily recognized by anybody in particular. It's just kind of, it was an idea that somebody had years ago, and people just kind of do it the way that they see fit doing it. There's more or less like traditional-esque paths that people do to link it up and stuff. Sure. But at the end of the day, you can do it however you want to. And then, I mean, also at the end of the day, like trails are really just kind of suggestions as it is. Whether or not you want like the certificate or whatnot, that's entirely up for you and your adventure and for your journey. And that's kind of what the Eastern Continental Trail is. It's kind of just a route to basically check out the eastern the eastern portion of the northwestern hemisphere, honestly, of the planet.
which in itself is quite a grand idea, isn't it?
It kind of is, yeah, for sure.
So first question, which is probably a silly question, and this is an easy answer, actually. Did you actually enjoy it? Because it's a long time to be out there.
I did enjoy it. By the end of it, I was glad to be finished. Yeah, of course, when you're doing it was 9.5 months to the day that it took to hike the whole thing. Of course, you're gonna have hard times and you're gonna have hard moments and stuff like that. Not every day is gonna be greater. Sometimes I think I went 2.5 months without having dry feet. But at the end of the day and at the end of the whole journey, like by the end of it, I was glad to be done with it. But I also there was never a moment that I would rather have like gotten off the trail and quit.
There you go.
There you go. And I think that's pretty important, And
there aren't many things in any walk of life that make you feel that way, is there? For 9.5 months to be doing the same thing and still be glad you're out there is quite a testament. And
absolutely.
And I thought and I was wondering about how we're going to present this, and I think we need to break it down into its constituent parts. Sure. So we're going to start with my home state. I know I don't sound like I'm originally from Florida because I'm not originally from Florida, but that is my home state now. And as you knew, you were going to be out on trail for about 9 or 10 months, and you said just now it's 9.5 months. Starting in Florida allows you a very early start, doesn't it? Because let's face it, the weather's great down there. When did you actually set out?
I set out. The timing wound up setting up like really conveniently for my memory, at least. I started out on the winter solstice, nice. December 21st.
Right. So you start in Key West, and actually, I think it must be. Well, maybe it's not for you because I know it's what you wanted to do. It must be daunting though to think that you got over 5,000 miles ahead of you, or did you think? This is exactly where I want to be right now.
Both. It was definitely both at the same time. It was the dovetailing of emotions of holy mother of all things good and holy in this world. What am I doing?
Yes,
this is absolutely absurd. And can I even do it? And then at the same time, I've been looking forward to doing this since like 2002.
Oh, wow.
So over 20 years, I've been looking forward to doing it. So, yeah, it was definitely both of those emotions for sure. I knew that it was going to be a big, it's that. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Absolutely, yes. That's it. And that's how you do any trail, isn't it? Whether it's a 50-mile trail or a 5,000-mile trail. That's literally right. How you do it. You do that. You do the next mile first and see what happens after that, don't you really?
100%.
So you start the 21st. Well, for a start, actually, where did you spend Christmas Day?
In the Keys.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was in the Keys. It was there was that. I don't know if you remember. I feel like most of the country did. There was this big winter cold snap, and it wound up hitting the Keys on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So it was like misty, light rain with wind chills into the 30s.
Lovely. Not at all like Florida.
No, it wasn't. It was definitely an odd duck. So I wound up just getting a motel room and called family and did that kind of thing.
But you're quite a singular fella, and I mean that, and that's not meant to be a pejorative. You're a singular person with a singular focus when you're doing something like that, aren't you? What's it like to be on your own on Christmas Day?
It was fine. In part because I'd already spent the last almost 2 months hanging out with my family.
All right,
my
perfect.
mom and my little brother and my nephew and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
We probably had enough by then. You're ready to go for a long walk by then.
Yeah. How long of a walk can I take? No, they're fantastic. I love them to death.
and I didn't know this, that the Florida Keys bit is the Overseas Heritage Trail.
That's right.
What's that all about? I don't even know where that comes from.
It's like I think it's 102 miles. It's either 98 or 102. But yeah, it goes from Key West, Florida, up all the way up to just east of John Penny Camp, almost right where you cross back over to the mainland on US 1. And it's just a little trail that basically kind of it tells a little bit about the history of the Florida Keys, and it also goes into the history of making like the Florida Keys like more accessible to people who are traveling down into that area with like the Flagler railroads that he built up.
Right.
all the way from like Jacksonville all the way down to Key West and stuff, and how like Key West was at one point more populated and more important to like Florida political history than Miami for a long time,
Right.
or Orlando.
Right.
That's pretty interesting.
So what's it like as a hiker, though? Because from my memory, driving down Key West, there's not much on either side. So where do you hike? Or do you walk along the main highway?
It's literally exactly the same thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. But for example, like, there's a couple of spots where you get on like a bicycle path. There's a lot of sidewalks. But then again, too, like you go over across 7 Mile Bridge and you're walking on the bridge, and just make sure you use the porta potty before you hit the bridge.
Yeah, my gosh.
Yeah, most people don't think about that.
No, 7 miles. That's a waste. That's a ways to get across, especially if you get caught short about 2 miles from the end.
That's right. You might be running.
Oh,
and it was windy,
literally.
and like I didn't see them, but I have known people that have like, what other kind of trail in the country can you see dolphins and sharks and sea turtles?
There you go.
It's pretty special, pretty unique to Florida.
And where do you actually camp on that part of the trail then?
You can do stealth camping if you want. There's one state park that specifically reserves one campsite a day for FKOHT, Florida Keys Overseas Heritage Trail hikers. So that's really convenient. And then there's also like hotels and motels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you can find them for a reasonable price in the busy season, like,
Right.
yeah, they can get pretty astronomical, but I got really lucky.
Or
Honestly, too, I will say this: I met some really amazing trail angels, maps, and just a bunch of really rad people. Some people who are like Maps and his family were they pulled over. They were like, "Hey, are you hiking the ECT?" I'm like, "I am." And like, "Hey, would you like some trail magic?" I'm like, "Yes, I would."
Yes.
And they had, like, long story short, they had like multiple people in that nuclear family had hiked the Appalachian Trail like relatively recently.
Oh, nice.
And were on vacation and hadn't even checked into their Airbnb yet.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I ran into them later in Franklin, North Carolina, and ran into them in various different parts. It was awesome. Yeah.
And so you get through the Keys, the Overseas Heritage Trail, and then you hit the Florida Trail itself.
You hit the Florida Connector before the Florida Trail.
Well, I said I'm looking. I've got this listed. Major. It says the South Dade Greenway. Is that it?
Yeah, it's a greenway, or it's a route to do whatever you want. But you could also take like the levees and the canals and stuff like that.
Right.
And go to the Miccosukee Seminole Reservation.
Right.
Yeah.
So you then hit the Florida Trail, though, and it's never appealed to me because I saw Dixie wading through swamps when she was doing it. I thought, there's no freaking way I'm ever going to do that. Do you like that?
I do like it. Yeah, it's especially on a hot day. It's just really cooling.
Well, that is nice.
It is really nice. And there's something special to be said about if you're first in the day and nobody's kicked up all the mud. There's fish swimming in between your feet on trail, and then when you get thirsty, you just bend over and get water right out of the swamp, which is actually, I know it sounds crazy, but you get the water right out of the Everglades, and it's naturally filtered from the rest of the Everglades. So it's actually really, really clean. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, It still doesn't appeal to me in the least, by the way. So how long does that part of the trail go on where you're actually going through, pretty much wading through?
It's really not that far. I think it's only like 13 miles or something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine because you're hiking the Florida Trail very much in season, I suppose, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Did you get much company on the Florida Trail?
Yeah, tons. I specifically timed my hike when I started and paced myself so that I could go to the Florida Trail kickoff party.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
It was fantastic. And I met a bunch of people, still friends with a lot of people, and I hiked with one woman, Flamingo, from like I met her at the kickoff party and finished up, and then hiked with a bunch of other people on and off. Long-term friendship. Very
cool. And the other thing which I also don't know about the trail, is there much of an infrastructure for hikers, or are there shelters, or is it trail towns? What's it like?
There are two, I believe there's two, maybe three shelters along the whole Florida Trail. But other than shelters, the infrastructure is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, they have whole trail communities that are set up that would like the whole passport thing that you can do when you go into different places. I would say that the Florida Trail is got to be one of the most like supportive trail communities that I've experienced and
Good
all
Lord.
of my hikes so far. Yeah, because a lot of people throw shade on the Florida Trail for whatever reasons. Maybe they don't like road walks, or maybe they just have this idea that Florida is, a backwards place. And people, people who live there and people who work on the trails.
I think that.
Sure. And you are a local.
Exactly.
They love that trail. They genuinely love that trail, and they do so much for that trail. So if you find yourself on that trail, on the Florida Trail, you're going to get super well supported. People are going to come out in droves to give you trail magic, anything that you need. If you need to ride somewhere, it's really, really supportive. Yeah, everybody is in love with that trail.
I should think about doing it then. I mean, I say the bit still doesn't appeal to me about wandering, wading through water, but we'll see how that goes.
Well,
so
you'd be lucky. You'd be lucky to do it in knee-deep water, because a friend of mine did go through the Everglades in March, and it was bone dry, and they had to drink water out of the air plants.
Oh, nice.
So it could be worse.
Oh, dear. So let's leave Florida behind, because there's still quite a bit of walking. So you leave Florida. Is there a connected trail, or is there quite a bit of road walking before? Because the Pinhoti is the next, as it were, main trail to hit, isn't it? What's the connector between the end of Florida Trail and then the Pinhoti?
Yeah, it's called the Alabama Road Walk. And you kind of take a connector spur off of the Florida Trail to get to the Alabama border. And then you kind of make it up as you go. The route that I took, I really wanted to go through Montgomery because I'd never been there before. I wanted to see some civil rights history and museums and stuff and monuments. And I also wanted to cut a little bit east and visit a friend of mine that I made last year on the Florida Trail.
Right.
Yeah, so you can just kind of do it however the heck you want. My route took me about 175 miles to get to the Pinhoti.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But then did you do the whole Pinhoti? Because I know you did the Pinhoti last year, didn't you?
I did.
So what did you do with it this year then?
I did not do it a pure through this year because it was really weird through the entirety of the ECT, starting in winter and racing against next winter. It was odd, and I knew it was going to be strange, and it definitely was. So I was trying to cut off, while keeping continuous footpath, I was trying to get through Newfoundland as fast as possible. So what I did was...
When does winter hit Newfoundland then?
If you're lucky, it won't hit until late October. If you're not lucky, early October.
Okay.
So, and my friend Little Buddha, he'd hiked it in mid-October before, and he said it was absolutely miserable. So I was like, all right, we got to go. So having had done the Pinhoti last year, I knew which parts that I really wanted to hit, like Chia State Park and some other spots. But there were also some spots that I knew that I didn't want to do that highway walk. And I knew that I could do a shortcut and do like a small little country road. Right. So I would do stuff like that. Basically, I used the Pinhoti Trail as scaffolding and kind of weave my way up through northern Alabama and North Georgia to the Appalachian Trail.
And did you hit the Benton McKay first, or did you go all the way up straight to the Appalachian Trail?
I got off of the Pinhoti Trail about 30 miles before it ended, and then just road walked all the way to Amicalola Falls.
Oh, right.
Which, right. I mean, let's be frank, scenery-wise and hiking-wise, it would have been much nicer to do the Pinhoti and the Benton McKay like I did last year. But I needed timing is of the essence. So I just hiked my butt all the way down some just mountain roads, pavement, all the way to Amicalola Falls.
but you must be putting in long miles each day then, must you? Because you've got a lot of miles to get done in that period of time. Yeah. What was your average mileage then in those days?
I probably averaged about a marathon a day. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that ain't nothing. I mean, that's quite a lot of hiking to do. So were you able to take many rests along the way in terms of days off, zeros and stuff like that? Or did you just pretty much keep going?
Yeah, I was able to do that. Yeah, we've it was very interesting journey. Like we took a Nero, we did 5 miles one morning, and then took a Nero and drove from Florida all the way over to New Orleans for Mardi Gras for a single night, and then turned around and came back the next day. Because somebody has a good idea, and you're like, well, the heck with it, let's go try it out. So that was, you get some. I don't know if it was the best rest in the world, but you could find some time off. And when I really would find myself like super duper worn out, I would make sure to take a zero and really rest my dogs.
Now, rest my
dogs, my feet.
All right, I never
rest
knew
my
you
dogs,
called,
rest my pups.
You called that, okay. and you actually hit the AT at Springer on a bit of a landmark day, didn't you?
April 1st.
April 1st, but it was also the 100th day, wasn't it?
It was also the 100th day, yeah. It just happened to be a really easy way for me to remember.
But at that stage, though, Jason, you were less than halfway still.
Yeah.
What does such a long, extended hike do to your psyche when you're out there? Because you've done long hikes before. I mean, but this obviously was the mother of all of them so far. What does that do to your psyche for that being out there for 9.5 months?
It had not hit at that point when I got to the AT. It hadn't really sunk in. I still knew I'd only done about a third of it. What it did do to me, I don't know. I think I'm still processing it, honestly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It was a long time, and even halfway point was just around near Harper's Ferry, so it was almost like the halfway of the AT was halfway of the ECT.
Right.
And it was like, you're only halfway, man. And then you're not even. I hadn't even started the really hard stuff yet.
Right.
I hadn't even gotten to the Whites. I hadn't even gotten to Vermont. I hadn't gotten to Southern Maine yet. I hadn't gotten to Quebec and the Matane. It's like you've already done a lot of miles and like you've got a lot to go. So,
and of course they had some real weather this year, didn't they? Some really serious weather this year.
Yeah, it was gnarly. I do feel really, really grateful that I made it through Vermont about maybe a week at most before those rains really came through. Like it would have been particularly devastating. And there was a hiker that my partner and I, who came out to hike with me, we met him, and he unfortunately lost his life to the waters in Vermont.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, devastating.
Yeah, man, it must have been. Yeah,
yeah.
And you obviously weren't with him at the time, obviously. But did you? Mm-mm. How'd you learn about that?
There were people had posted online on different AT Facebook groups that people had seen him, and then it came out that.
Jeez.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a wild year. It was absolutely wild. There was a lot of people. So you had all of that, and then you had towns who were declared natural disasters in Vermont. And then, like, on the flip side of it, in like Pennsylvania and New York, it was such a drought that the streams and the creeks and stuff were dried up. So people had to bring out water caches. But then by the time you get to Maine, it's so rainy that a lot of SOBOers who were just starting their thru hike were like having to skip around huge chunks of Maine because it was just impassable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Wild.
Yes, absolutely. And you actually said that when we spoke before that in Pennsylvania you had to get off trail to see something different.
Yeah.
Were you getting inside your head a little bit too much then?
So we talked about this a little bit last year. Last year I was definitely a purist as a hiker goes. This year, not so much. I think I've like put. I don't know what to do. I'm just not anymore. I still want my continuous footpath, but sometimes I was like, I just needed a change of scenery. I just needed a little bit of a break, and it had nothing to do with. I wasn't even in Roxylvania yet. I wasn't even in like the sharp little jagged rocks that you're stepping on all day. I wasn't even there
special.
Yet. It was just
special.
Yeah. They're particularly interesting. Although it did teach me how to splay my feet out more and to be a better hiker. But
interesting.
I did. Yeah. Sometimes I just needed like a change of scenery, man. And I wound up getting off of the trail at one point and adding on extra miles just to go walk down these farm roads through like Mennonite farm country and stuff. And it was great. And I got to talk to some Mennonite farmers who like one dude rode a bicycle up and handed me his packed lunch, and it was fantastic. Those are those experiences. Cool. Yeah. But
stuff
sometimes
like that,
for my mental health, you had to go.
In real life, you don't get that sort of stuff, do you?
Right.
No one's ever going to walk up to you, give you their lunch, are they?
Absolutely.
It's incredible, and you think, and people who don't do this, have never done this, and are just listening to us and haven't done it, probably can't understand it. But people have that instinct about you that you want their lunch. not that you're going to kill them for it, but they're happy to give you their lunch because they're impressed with what you're doing, and they love to buy into the romance of it, don't they? In many ways. Yeah.
And like, I don't even know if he knew, if that farmer knew what I was doing, like on the AT, let alone the ECT, because I wasn't advertising. I had a backpack on, for sure, but I wasn't on the trail. I was on just a country road. Yeah. But he was just a really kind dude who was, we chatted it for a little bit, and he was like, "Here, are you hungry?" I mean, I probably looked emaciated.
By the way, did you lose weight?
I lost a bunch of weight until I got to the Pinhoti Outdoor Center. And a friend of mine, Tigger, she kind of got on my case and was like, "You need to eat more. You're wasting away." And I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I made sure to like really up my calories. And by like New England, I definitely started to like change my eating habits and how I could like really keep that stuff on. I could smell my body eating the protein in my muscles.
Isn't it the smell of ammonia? That's what it is on your arm. Yep. And you think, I'm literally eating myself away at the moment.
That's exactly what it was. My partner now, Chance, she was like, "You smell like ammonia." We'll use that as a euphemism. And I was like, okay, this is a problem. I need to. So I started eat, like, you always want your vegetables and fruit and stuff. So whenever I go into town, I get like a giant salad and then an entire rotisserie chicken just for myself. Yeah, just to kind of beef up the proteins and stuff like that.
Easily done.
Easily done. Yeah, those chickens had no chance.
And people just look at you as if to say, "Have you never eaten?" Oh my God!
Well, not today.
You tend to graze somewhat. And for those of us mere mortals, getting to the brown sign at Katahdin is our ultimate goal.
Sure.
But again, you still had, I think it's about 700 miles still to go at that point. How did you feel on that Katahdin day? Because you'd done an AT thru-hike, really, hadn't you? So it ain't nothing, is it?
Well, it was definitely more than nothing. And it was more than double that. It was like 1,500 plus miles to go after.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was a lot. There's a lot of ways.
Oh, my gosh.
Katahdin was awesome. It was, even before getting to Katahdin, I remember being in the 100-mile wilderness at some lake. I think I was at this lake. It was the first time, I was in a mountaintop, and it was the first time I saw Katahdin, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Like, I've never seen a picture of Katahdin. I just refuse.
Really?
And then I got to this lake. Yeah, I just don't like to look at photos of things before I go see them, before I go do them myself. When I saw Katahdin at a lake and was like, oh, whoa, that's a big mama K, as people call it.
That's right, yeah.
And then I get there and was like, holy cow, like, this is ridiculous. And I looked at the elevation for summiting the next day and was like, okay, this is legit. And like, kind of, the weather worked out perfectly in that, like in the morning where you're doing these huge boulder scrambles and trying to grab onto this rebar that's occasionally there. It was like nice and misty and cloudy and you couldn't see anything, so it kept you cool. But summiting was really, really profound. Like, I finally did the AT after 20 something years of wanting to do it. And then almost as soon as we terminused, and went and started going down the Knife's Edge, which was our route that we took to get off the mountain, it just cleared up. And you just get this beautiful ridge walk, kind of like a Franconia Notch. And it was just absolutely amazing.
Franconia Ridge for me is the site on the trail. We just get up there and you just look ahead of you, see what's going on ahead of you. I think that's one of the most amazing places to see on the trail.
I couldn't agree with you more, Steve. I'm so grateful to have hit it on a bluebird day, because I've seen other people who are just socked in, and I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to expect. And I get up there and was just, I was just dumbfounded at how just beautiful it was.
Well, I'd seen pictures, I knew what to expect, and I was giggling like a little girl because I was so excited when I saw it. It's emotional for me to even think about that day. And you, as you say, it's a bluebird day. I could see everything. It was just amazing. Anyway, look, you just mentioned that you went down the Knife's Edge. I didn't know that was the exit for you. So. And I'm very hazy, as you can tell, because I thought it was only about 700 miles to go after that. I'm very hazy about those miles. So you go down the Knife's Edge. First off, what's that like?
It was awesome. I was a little concerned that the wind was going to be going up Katahdin. The wind was not crazy, but it wasn't a smooth sail either. And I was concerned about doing the Knife's Edge with that wind, let alone worse. And thank goodness it cleared up, because the Knife's Edge it's just like that. It's a Knife's Edge for certain portions of it. And like, if it was much windier, I don't think we would have taken that route. I think we would have gone a completely different way.
And
but
you
I'd
mentioned
heard so
we,
much about it.
And you mentioned you were with is it Little Buddha then?
Yeah, I was with Little Buddha, and then this guy Mooch. We terminus together. We'd hiked for like just that day. Honestly, it was like that day and a little. No, yeah. That was the only day that we like hiked the whole day together.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, they were fantastic. We met at Shaw's Hiker Hostel.
Right,
a couple of days before.
Oh, so the 100 Mile Wilderness is you shared that, and that's a special thing to share with anybody. I think the 100 Mile Wilderness.
I love the 100 Mile Wilderness. I thought it was breathtaking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So you then headed off towards Canada. Mm-hmm. I'm getting right. I'm right there, I think. And then you crossed the Canadian border. Mm-hmm. Didn't the border guard give you a bit of advice about the trail ahead?
Yeah. One of the we were getting close to the it's a route, so we just do whatever we're going to do. And one of the border patrol people said that the trail is basically like waist deep and like bog and oversaturated at the moment. And he said, and that was a week ago before more rain had happened, and we were like, never mind, let's just take this road. Like, we weren't even a mile from the trail, and we're like, let's just stay on the road and stay relatively dry instead of waist deep.
Damn right. So then, did you beat the winter, or did you head north first and then link up separately? How did you work it out?
Sort of. So we did, because Little Buddha started a little bit before me, and then we joined up and hiked the rest of it from about the 100 Mile Wilderness all the way through. So what we did is we hiked north Mount Nobo all the way to the northern tip of Quebec at Cape Gaspé at the lighthouse, which is the old historic northern terminus.
All right.
And then we did Prince Edward Island, which is the way that most people do it. But then what we did is we skipped Nova Scotia and went and did Newfoundland, and that was kind of a weird flippity-floppity kind of thing, because we...
Is that a technical term?
Yeah,
flippity-floppy kind of thing,
yeah. So it's a flippity-floppity, plus some like extra credit stuff. He heard about this really cool place called Gross Morn, and he was like, it's not on the trail, but you want to go do it? I was like, absolutely. Can I go see some fjords? That would be cool. And then we finished Newfoundland and then finished Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Right. So where was your... where was your completed 5,000 miles steps? In other words, where did you finish actually? Or you not know?
Where I finished was at a Travel Lodge motel.
Excellent.
And like
epic.
New Glasgow, Nova Scotia.
Excellent. Epic. You'll remember that forever.
I will. And how weird it was to end it. You're like, all right, I guess I'm done now. This is odd.
And you've actually referred to her already. Along the way, at some stage, you acquired a girlfriend.
I did. It's true.
Amanda?
Yep,
Amanda?
That's right. Yep,
okay.
Amanda.
Was she hiking on the trail, or how'd you meet her?
No. Her trail name's Not a Chance, but I just call her Chance.
Right.
No, when I was right after actually interviewing with you, talking with you last year, I was still hanging out in South Florida, waiting to start this journey. And I was reading somebody's blog, this guy Swami, this hiker, and she was linked to it. So I went and checked her out on social media, and it was like, oh,
stalker,
she got like
bloody stalker.
Kind of. I was like, wow, she got like over 20,000 miles, all this crazy routes and stuff out west.
Wow.
And then I commented on one of her photos from, I think it was like a sand dune with snow in Death Valley, with like all this just really beautiful scenery, and I commented, and we just started talking, and then we formed a long distance relationship on literally the day that I hit the Alabama Road Walk, and then she came out and hiked with me for a week and a half through New York, Connecticut, which she was a ridge runner in Connecticut in 2015, and then we did all of Massachusetts, and then she came back to Death Valley, and I continued on, but with a much even a faster pace, because she was waiting for me.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. The trail does wonderful things for that.
It does. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, and that's like literally the day that I left the East Coast, and the day after finishing the Eastern Continental Trail, I hopped on a plane from Nova Scotia and headed over to Death Valley, and that's where I'm at now.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So, when you were done, I know for me, I took 6 months to do just the Appalachian Trail. You've taken 9.5 months to do more than twice the length of the Appalachian Trail, which blows my mind, really.
6 months to do the AT sounds wonderful, honestly.
Well, yes, there is that.
Crazy.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. How do you come down from that? Because that's 9.5 months of physical exertion, extremely. You're very much living life out there in the way that's not normal to most people. And that. How did you come down after 9.5 months of that? Did you get a bit of a downer when you came back?
No, I've never had post-trail depression.
Right.
No, but also on the other hand, I'll let you know when not about the depression, but I'll let you know because I'm still processing. I'll probably be processing for a while. My feet hurt still sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, totally. My hips are still sore, not sore, but tight. My knees are still a little tight. I don't know if I told you this, but 2 days before finishing the entire stupid thing, I rolled my ankle on pavement. And almost broke my ankle
on a pavement.
On pavement. There was a lip, like a lip off the pavement of a freshly paved road, leaving a motel.
Isn't that amazing?
Almost ended my hike.
that is hilarious. Oh, dear.
But emotionally, I feel fantastic. It's epic. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm still processing a lot of it, and I probably will be for the rest of my life. Let's be honest. But physically, yeah, still sore, still tired. Emotionally, I feel absolutely fantastic.
You look real well. You look very, very well.
Thank
you. I'm so pleased you do, because I think it would take a toll on anybody, really. Physically and probably emotionally as well. And I know that you intend to work over the winter because you're going to allow yourself to hike the Arizona Trail next year.
Yep.
And when we spoke before, one thing that really struck me, and I wrote it down, was you said your goal was to get comfortable in your hiking abilities. What does that look like? Because you seem to be really comfortable with them right now. Or do you still think you're learning how to hike?
I definitely think that I'm still learning how to hike. I don't know anything about hiking in the desert, and I'm learning that now. I don't know anything about hiking in the snow, and I anticipate having to do some of that on the Arizona Trail in March and the Pacific Crest Trail next year. I don't know anything about a lot of different aspects of trail life. I don't know anything about routes. I've never done a big route or anything like that.
Right.
So at this point, it's just about leveling up and not gamifying, but I think I'd mentioned to you the whole point of all this backpacking stuff. I'll probably hike for the rest of my life as long as I can physically and emotionally and financially do it. But that's not the end game. I also like flying and boats, and I like trains and bicycles and just travel and adventure. And for me, if I can skill build and just kind of put all the skills from backpacking and maybe even alpine stuff, or I don't know how to rock climb or belay or use ropes or anything like that. If I can learn how to do those things and build those skills, then that means I can go to Central America or South America or Southeast Asia or maybe, Mongolia or wherever, and I won't have to focus so much on my skill set. I won't have to focus on my gear. I can really sink my teeth into and give all my attention to the cultures that I'm going through and the people that I'm experiencing.
Sure.
And of course the food, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. From when you said that, I kind of thought that was where you were going with that. But I would think with what you faced this year, 9.5 months, you faced a big variety of stuff. You could turn your hand to all of it, couldn't you? Really, I suspect,
so.
even now.
I do, and to be totally frank too, even coming out here to Death Valley, things are different. It's subtle, but the terrain and the textures and the terrain are radically different from anything that I've hiked out east.
Sure. Yeah,
And
sure.
sometimes it's just about the most subtle hue that'll let you know whether it's a rock that's sturdy enough to step on or whether it's like loose gravel that you're going to slip down into a canyon on.
Yeah,
And that just comes from experience.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you only have to do it once.
Yeah, that's right.
bit like stepping off a pavement.
It's a bit like stepping off a pavement.
Oh dear. Well, look, I'm so glad you came back on, and I'm very impressed with what you've done this year, and I just think to see your happy, smiling face is a bonus as well. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story again with us, Jason.
Absolutely, I really appreciate Mighty Blue. It's always fantastic.
Okay, buddy, take it easy. Okay.
Yeah, you do the same.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Do you know, when I was editing that yesterday, I was smiling the whole time. I've forgotten how much we laughed in that conversation. Jason takes some terrific photos, a few of which are in the show notes, but some of the ones he has of himself are quite kind of dark and scary. But as you heard, he's a laugh and very humble about his hiking. That's quite a journey, yet I loved his nonchalance as we spoke and his all-round joy about his trip last year. If he does another long hike, I'd love to have him back on the show. Before we catch up with Mary Marks for the first of our catch-ups with the Mighty Blue class of last year, I wanted to thank our donors for their continued assistance in keeping the show going this past week. Recurring donors Kevin Eastman, Small World IFT, Michael Gosh, Ann Dobson, Mike DiCello, Alan Troy and Jens Lipperheider have stuck with us, plus several really generous donations and lovely comments from Joanne Flagg, Michael Burbage and somebody who'd prefer to remain anonymous. Thanks to all of you for your kind words and your hard-earned cash. If you'd like to contribute, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks to one and all. Now, for the first of our class of 2023 catch-ups, I managed to speak with Mary Marks on Monday. Here she is. Well, in the first of our catch-ups, we're going to speak with Mary Marks. Hey, Mary, how are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing well. Thank you.
And what's it like living in air conditioning and with flushing toilets and the whole 9 yards of showers?
Oh, a whole new appreciation for life in general.
Oh, that's interesting. Appreciation for life in general. We'll come to actually some of your takeaways in a minute, but let's have a few facts and figures. The date you started, the day you finished, and tell us those first off.
I started February 12th and finished September 18th.
Okay, so that was 7 months. And did it feel like a long time to be away?
It was a long time to be away. It was very long.
And was it too long?
At times, I felt I needed to be home, but never had that desire to just throw in the towel.
Right. Have you worked out how many days that is, by the way? How many days were you actually out? Oh, you did actually. Was it 10 miles a day average?
Yes, 221 days.
That
I actually
is remarkable.
I did the first 4 days in January. So, and then I went back to work for 5 weeks and started February 12th. So it was 221.
And did you retire to do this?
I did.
But you told me the other day when we said about recording again, you're back working.
Yes, and I laughed about that because I was home for 3 weeks, did all the things you need to do when you get home, the dentist, the doctor, and catch up with friends and family. And I was like, I need to go back to work. So I have a wonderful manager. Shout out to Mario. He accepted me back with open arms. And it keeps me grounded.
Yeah, if you're not ready to pack up, don't pack up. Absolutely should carry on if you can. And how were you physically at the end, Mary? How did you feel? I know you felt great when we last spoke. When you finished the trail and so on. But you said you went back and you saw your doctors and so on. So what did they say about your physical shape when you got back?
Oh, I was fine. I had lost 10 pounds. But other than that, I was fine physically. But towards the end of the hike, I was beat up pretty bad. I was really tired. I was tired.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not a small thing, is it? I think when you look back at it, and I'm looking at actually the picture of you at the top of Katahdin right now. Actually, not Katahdin. I'm looking at the picture of you at Springer. So when you look back, because that's the picture I use as my card of. I always have a picture of every person I speak to on a card, and so this is of you and your dog. What's the dog's name? I've forgotten the dog's name.
Wiley.
At the top of Springer with Wiley, so that's cool. And how was Wiley when you got back home?
Oh, wonderful. For the first 10 minutes, all the welcomes from him. And then after that, it was like I had never left.
Probably feels that way, yeah. So,
yes.
So you stayed in a tent, didn't you, most of the time?
I did.
Did you stay in shelters at all, or would you try to avoid those as much as possible?
I tried to avoid them, but I did, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
There were some times that it was just too cold or too wet, and I did stay in shelters.
Yeah, I think this a combination is a good idea, actually, because, you don't want to pack up with a wet tent. So if you can avoid that, going in a shelter will solve that for you, won't it, in most cases?
Oh, it will. And that was mainly the reason, not to have to pack up wet.
Yeah. And did it feel like home to you? My tent always felt like home to me, although I'm now trying to make a transition to hammocking. But my tent always felt like a real comfortable home for me. Were you glad to be out of it, or did you enjoy being in it?
No, I loved my tent.
Yeah.
It was so comfortable. It's so homey. I felt safe in it. Believe it or not, this little piece of material could make you feel safe.
Isn't it ridiculous? I mean, when you think about
it,
but I know exactly how you feel. That for me, it's when you zip up the bug net, and once you're in, you're fine. There's nothing's going to come in, and you're good to go. What about your other gear? Did your gear work out generally?
My gear was great. I just had to replace my trekking poles one time. I fell on it coming down Moosilauke.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That treacherous walk down there. Yeah. But other than that, everything held up very well. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to use it on my next big trip.
Oh, well,
I might replace my tent.
Oh, really?
But I'm going to use everything else. Is still in good shape.
Well, actually, that was going to be my last question. Was going to be, are you going to go on another long hike? What do you got planned? So we'll jump to that now. What do you got planned?
I do have lots of plans. Well, this year I'm going to go back to Vermont and do the long trail.
Nice.
And
will you start from the beginning, Mary, or will you go to the bit you missed off? No, right, okay, right, here you
go. Yeah, I'll start in Rutland, and finish it. I've been down to the Keys, finishing up the Florida Heritage Trail.
Wow.
I want to do the Tour de Mont Blanc.
Beautiful.
In the summer, maybe, or the Wonderland Trail. I just need to get some elevation in before 2025.
Oh, crikey! What you makes it sound like you got a plan for 2025 as well.
I do, the CDT.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Will you take Wiley with you?
No. If there was one thing I would have done different on this last trail, it would have been to leave him home.
Oh, why is that?
Well, he did great for 1,500 miles.
Yeah.
And then it became too hot. It's just so much to ask of an animal to walk 12 hours a day in the rain, in the mud, in the heat. I just wouldn't do that to him again. I'll take him on my shorter trips.
Yeah.
Like I'll take him to Vermont, and I'll take him, on my weekly hikes, but not a thru hike ever again.
So 2025 is the CDT.
Yes.
So when is the PCT then?
Well, my thought on that was I should probably do the hardest one next before I get too old.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Oh, yeah.
The hardest one you've already done. The hardest one is definitely the AT. I know, and I've not done the others, but I've spoken to so many hikers who tell me that of the 3 Triple Crown hikes, the hardest is by far the AT.
Well, that's good to hear.
So you've done that. You sorted it.
And it was hard.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So tell us about a couple of things from the trail. So you certainly for me, I found myself loving certain food and hating certain food. Have you got a favorite food choice and a least favorite food choice?
I stopped eating tuna in Tennessee. I never bought another tuna pack ever, and I probably never will. So tuna was the least favorite.
Yeah.
But, I splurged quite a bit on my food. I didn't do ramen. I didn't do the mashed potatoes. I did all the dehydrated meals.
Sure.
And I've had enough variety of those where I never got tired of them.
Yeah, it's not a cheap way to do it, but it's certainly quite a satisfying way, isn't it? I love pouring the hot water in there, especially the biscuits and gravy, which was my favourite.
Yes.
Putting the hot water in there and letting it all sort of settle down. Oh, loved it. And you said, once again, you jumped into my questions. My question was going to be, would you have changed anything apart from not taking Wiley with you? Is there anything else you would have changed, like your start date, or what are the things you've looked at when you've looked back on that hike? You finished like 3 months ago, 4 months, 3 or 4 months ago. Is there other things you would have changed?
No. The only thing I would have done more was journal more. I did journal every day. I knew exactly what day I was on, my mileage, where I stayed, who I met.
Right.
But I will be more detailed in my journal now.
Why is that?
Because, reflecting back, listening to Joanne and Jessica finishing up their hikes.
Sure.
There are places they were that I wish I knew where I was at that time. Because I don't remember. I remember meeting people, but I can't remember where it was at. So I wasn't real detailed in my journaling.
I don't know about you, but when I read back notes I took and I listened, because I podcasted my 2019 hike, when I listened to that, I could see things and imagine myself back there and when it happened to me. So I almost can see and recognize things that I didn't even write about at the time, because it put me right back in that place. And it's a very powerful thing. I always tell people to write down as much as you can, because, otherwise, it's going to merge from one day to the next. So it's probably worth thinking about that.
And that's very true. But some nights you were just too tired to even.
Oh yeah.
Write the smallest of notes. So But I would try to be better with that. And also, the people I met, I wish I had more contact information for the people that I met.
Well, funnily enough, there is a book called. It's Odie's book. Odie does this, the yearbook, the Appalachian Trail yearbook, which you can actually now buy from the Appalachian Trail Museum, because they took it over from Odie and he passed it on to them, rather. And in the back of that, it has all the contact details of people who've allowed themselves, if they put their name in, they put the contact details, you can contact a lot of people and there's a picture there. So it's worth checking that out if you can. So I've got mine. So from 2019, he didn't start it. Well, he did it in 2014, but I wasn't in it that year. Even though I was on the trail, I just never saw him. I never sent pictures. But you can add yourself to that and you can see other people as well. Okay. So you might be able to get those contacts. And so, what about takeaways? Firstly, do you miss it at all?
Oh, every day.
Do you really?
Every day.
Oh, interesting.
I think about it every day. I think about it every morning, every evening. Yeah, it's on my mind. I do miss it.
And did you take my advice? Tell your friends your stories for about 3 weeks.
You were spot on with that.
They couldn't give a crap after a while, could they?
Right, exactly. Tired of hearing about it.
and if you had something you could share with this year's class, because we're now in 2024 as I record this on the 1st of January, what would you say to this year's class to think of when they're thinking about heading out next month or the month after?
Oh gosh. Take your time. Just take your time and enjoy it. Don't be in a rush. I mean, I know some people are on a time frame, but don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. There is a time frame for some people, but unless you stop and enjoy it and smell that old expression, "Smell the roses," you're not going to enjoy it anywhere near as much. And somebody once said to me, and I listened to them after my 2014 hike, where I wouldn't sit down for 15, 20 minutes or an hour just to enjoy a view and a sunset or a sunrise. I would just keep moving on and so on. And certainly in 2019, I did that more. I would take those views because they were there. Because if then, you may not get that view again for another 4 or 5 days. So enjoy those views while they're. That was for me anyway. So
Yep.
you're going to go and do the long trail. So when you do the CDT next year, in the hope that this show is still struggling to put a show out every week, I'd love to see what your thoughts are on the CDT. Okay.
Oh, yes, I would love that.
That'd be cool.
Love that. And you have many adventures coming up this year as well, so good luck to you on those.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to go back on the AT for 4 days to do the Virginia Triple Crown as a shakedown for my hike in the UK. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very nice.
All right, Mary. Well, look, lovely to catch up with you again. I'm so glad you did this.
Yes.
I'm so glad we followed you, and I'm so glad you made it to the end. All right?
Yes, it was amazing, and Happy New Year to you.
Thanks, Mary. And you. Cheers then.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Isn't she a trooper? And I'm delighted she pointed out how tough the trail can be on an animal, and sending Wiley home must have been arranged for her, yet she knew it was the right thing to do for her dog. I met Mary at one of our Woods Hole weekends, and she had, and doubtless still has, a steely determination. While we all know that a wrong step here or there can end a hike, I never thought she'd leave the trail voluntarily, and I'm so glad that she was able to complete it. Now, normally I'd lean into a new book, but not today. Please reach out if you have ideas for the show. Until then, I'll see you next week.